I didn't expect to feel anything special that day. I was just stopping by for tea at Noriko's home, a kind, 80-year-old Japanese woman who lives alone in a quiet corner of Seattle. But the moment I stepped inside, something shifted. The house was small, modest, nothing fancy. And yet, I felt lighter, as if the air itself was uncluttered. She served me tea with both hands and said softly, "I don't clean. I just return things home." I smiled at the time, but that sentence stayed with me. Because lately, I've been feeling buried by papers, by dishes, by small tasks that never seem to end. Her home, and her way of being in it, show me something I hadn't realized I was missing: stillness. What I'm about to share isn't advice. It's something I learned quietly through watching. 7 everyday habits that don't just keep a house tidy. They create a sense of calm, and they're backed by something deeper, a culture and even science that understands how our space shapes our spirit. Habit number 1, everything has a home. The first thing I noticed in Noriko's home was the quiet order. Not the kind that comes from deep cleaning or minimalism, but something gentler. Nothing looked new or styled, yet nothing seemed out of place. Her slippers pointed neatly toward the door. The remote sat exactly in the center of a small tray on the table. The towel in the bathroom was folded just once, resting like it had always known where to land. "It's not that I clean," she told me. "I just bring everything back home." That word, home, stayed with me. Not back to its spot or where it belongs, but home. She talked about objects the way you talk about people, with care. "Things feel lost when they wander," she said. "And when they're lost, your mind feels it too." Later, I came across a study from the Institute of Gerontology at Tokyo University. It found that older adults who had consistent storage locations for daily items, keys, glasses, medications, experienced less mental fatigue and even fewer household accidents. They weren't just better organized, they were mentally freer. Less time spent looking, less worry about forgetting. So I decided to try one small shift, a key dish. Just one spot, right by the door. No more tossing keys on the counter or burying them in my bag. And you know what? It worked. I stopped losing 5 minutes each morning. More than that, I stopped starting my day frustrated. From there, other little homes started to form. A basket for mail, a tray for remotes, a hook for my favorite scarf. The more I gave each item a place to rest, the more I realized I was offering the same thing to myself: permission to rest. Permission to know that even in a world that often feels messy, some things can stay still. It wasn't about perfection. It was about peace. One small dish at a time. Habit number 2, the 1-minute rule. No more metal piles. It was such a small moment, I almost missed it. Noriko had just stood up to pour another cup of tea. As she sat back down, she reached for a cloth and gently wiped the table, one tiny splash already drying. She didn't even pause the conversation. It was so seamless, I only noticed because I wouldn't have done it. "If something takes less than a minute," she said, "I do it now." There was no rush in her tone, no rigid rulebook. Just a way of moving through her space, calmly, presently, one small task at a time, and then moving on. That line echoed later when I read a paper from Kyoto University about micro-efficiency habits. The researchers found that completing small tasks immediately, rather than postponing them, helps prevent what they called cognitive residue. Especially in older adults, this residue, those lingering unfinished chores, can quietly tax the mind, raising anxiety and lowering attention. It's not the mess itself that overwhelms us. It's the knowing it's still there. I realized how often I did just that. Walked past a dish in the sink, telling myself I'd get to it later. Dropped a sock near the hamper. Left a water glass by the couch. Each one took seconds to fix. But together, they formed a quiet background hum of guilt and delay. So I tried Noriko's way. Just one cup rinsed right away. A blanket folded as I walked past. A piece of mail opened the moment I picked it up. None of it felt like cleaning. And yet, my home started changing. Or rather, I started changing it. The clutter didn't get a chance to build. But more than that, neither did the mental weight. There's something kind about doing these little things right away. It says this matters. Not because it's big, but because it's now. And in a life where so much is uncertain, There's comfort in knowing a drop of tea can be wiped before it dries. Habit number 3. Keep less, choose well. When less becomes a gift. Noriko's kitchen was like a poem. Nothing extra, nothing missing. 1 pot, 1 pan, 2 bowls, 2 pairs of chopsticks. That was it. And yet, every meal she made felt complete. There was no rummaging through drawers, no expired sauces tucked in the back of the fridge. Everything was used, cared for, and somehow just enough. I used to have more, she told me. But I only keep what I use now, not what I might use, not what someone once gave me. I nodded, but inwardly, I felt a little exposed. I could think of 3 blenders at home, a drawer full of mismatched mugs, and a rice cooker I kept only because someone once told me it was expensive. Later, I came across the Japanese concept of danshari, which translates roughly to refuse, release, separate. It's more than decluttering. It's a mindful practice of letting go. An Osaka-based study found that seniors who engaged in danshari-inspired living experienced a measurable decrease in depression symptoms and greater overall satisfaction with aging. Not because their homes were cleaner, but because their hearts were lighter. So I tried. First, I opened the kitchen drawer I always avoided. I asked myself, not will I use this someday, but do I use this now? I didn't throw everything out. I didn't force myself to become a minimalist. I just chose honesty over obligation. The bread machine went. The souvenir plates I never liked but kept out of guilt. The second colander. The third. And something surprising happened. I didn't feel loss. I felt space. Space on the counter, yes, but more importantly, space in my mind. Fewer things to manage. Fewer items whispering, you should use me. You're wasting me. You don't appreciate enough. Noriko wasn't trying to live with less. She was trying to live with what mattered. And that meant making room for light, for breath, for a kind of clarity I hadn't known I was missing. It turns out, when we let go of things that no longer serve us, we aren't throwing away our past. We're making space for who we are now. And maybe that's the most generous thing we can do for ourselves. Habit number 4, 5 minutes before bed. The quiet goodbye to the day. I had gathered my coat and was halfway to the door when Noriko paused me with a soft gesture. Give me 5 minutes, she said gently. I watched as she moved quietly through her kitchen, returned the tray of tea, washed 2 cups, folded the napkin, straightened 2 chairs. Then she turned back and smiled. Now my day is complete. There was nothing rushed, nothing dramatic. Just a soft bow to the day. A way of saying, I've honored this space, and now I'm ready to rest. Later that week, I came across a Japanese study on sleep quality among older adults. It found that even light, predictable tidying rituals before bed, wiping a surface, closing a cabinet, significantly reduced nighttime rumination. That low hum of unfinished tasks quieted. In brain scans, researchers saw more relaxed neural activity in participants who ended their evenings with a few mindful gestures. Inspired by Noriko, I began to do the same. Just a few things each night. Wipe the counter, tuck in the chairs, put my shoes by the door. I wasn't trying to clean, I was closing the day. And it worked. I began to sleep more deeply. Not because the house was spotless, but because my mind wasn't holding on to yesterday. Those small acts created a pause, a moment to mark the shift between effort and rest. Now, every evening, I whisper to the space around me. Thank you for carrying me through the day. I'll see you in the morning. Habit number 5. Let each space have a purpose. A home with boundaries, not walls. Noriko didn't have a big home. In fact, it was smaller than mine, but it felt more spacious, almost like every room had room to breathe. This is where I eat, she said, placing 2 bowls gently on the dining table. That's where I rest. She gestured toward a small corner with 1 chair, 1 cushion, and a stack of books. What struck me was not the simplicity, but the clarity. She didn't check the mail at the dinner table. She didn't balance her checkbook on the sofa. Each space had a purpose, and that gave the entire home a kind of calm structure. I later read a comparative study between Japan and Sweden on environmental design for older adults. It showed that seniors who assigned clear functions to different areas in their homes, regardless of size, experienced sharper focus, greater emotional balance, and fewer feelings of being overwhelmed. I saw the truth of that in my own life. I cleared the mail off my dining table and made a rule: meals only. I created a tiny reading nook by a window with just a chair and a lamp. I even stopped folding laundry on the couch, choosing a small table instead. Each change was small, but together they helped restore a sense of intention to my days. I wasn't just using my home, I was living in it with care. Noriko's home had no walls to separate her life, but it had boundaries. And in those boundaries, she found peace. Habit number 6, prepare for tomorrow, tonight. A morning without rushing. Before heading to bed, Noriko moved through a quiet routine. She folded a shirt over the back of a chair, filled a glass of water for a nightstand, checked the doors, then turned off the lights one by one. Morning, she said softly, is when the mind is most confused. So I help it the night before. There was no anxiety in the way she prepared. No running lists. Just care given in advance. It made sense, I later learned. A study from a Nagoya Geriatric Center found that bedtime preparation routines are closely linked to better morning mobility and emotional resilience in older adults. Fewer early-day decisions mean less mental clutter and a more grounded start. So I tried it. I laid out my clothes, packed a small lunch, made sure my keys and wallet were in their home. It wasn't about productivity. It was about peace. I woke up and didn't have to think. I could just begin. I stopped chasing the morning. Instead, I met it. That 2-minute shift made more difference than I expected. It didn't just help me move faster. It helped me move gently. Habit number 7, thank your belongings. Gratitude in small gestures. After she washed her teacup, Noriko dried it carefully and then pressed her hands together. I thank it, she said, for serving me today. She wasn't being poetic. She was simply being present. I'd never seen anyone do that. Thank an object, not out of superstition, but respect. Later, I learned about madanai, a Japanese value that holds deep reverence for things and discourages waste. It's not just about using what we have, it's about seeing objects as companions in our daily life. Studies have shown that this mindset often leads to lower levels of materialism and greater contentment, especially among older generations. I began to slow down. I noticed the way a favorite wooden spoon curved perfectly in my hand, the sound my kettle made as it boiled, the warmth of the mug I always reached for on quiet mornings. And as I began to acknowledge them, not worship, but appreciate, my relationship with stuff changed. My home didn't just become neater. It became kinder. And that kindness, I realized, was already in me. I just needed to remember how to extend it, even to a teacup. Noriko never set out to teach me anything. She simply lived, quietly, intentionally, and let her habits speak for themselves. In her home, there were no grand systems, just 7 gentle rhythms that offered her space, order, and peace. These aren't cleaning hacks. They're small acts of care. Each one says, this matters. I matter. My space matters. And perhaps that's what we truly need, especially as we get older. Not more bins or schedules, but clarity. Not perfection, but permission to move slowly, to let go of what weighs us down, and to build lightness with our own hands. You don't have to change everything. Just one habit, one drawer, one bedtime gesture. That's how Noriko lives. That's what her home whispered to me. Peace doesn't come from doing more. It begins with returning things home, both around you and within you.